The pantry is now full of all of the foods that we've preserved through the year and all of the pantry staples that we have stocked up on. These are the foundation for what I'm going to do now, which is I'm going to make some homemade baking mixes. We're going to make some homemade peanut butter and kind of things along those lines to make my from scratch pantry a little bit more convenient, especially with baby coming soon. I want to make sure that I can simplify things as much as possible. And I also get to use some of the food that I've preserved throughout the year by making my own homemade versions. For example, what I'm working on today is a homemade pumpkin pancake mix that is a big bulk recipe that I can measure out a certain amount, and then all I need to add is oil and water and it's ready to go. I'm going to use some freeze-dried pumpkin powder that I made this year, and I'm also going to use some of our freeze-dried eggs. And then there will be more things that I purchased, like buttermilk powder and just some staples like salt and flour and things like that will all go into this mix, and we'll have a healthier version than store-bought that we can make at home in just a few minutes.
So the backstory here is we grow pumpkins every other year because when we do, we usually get a huge harvest, too much to eat in one year. So we spread it over 2 years. And this year I tried something new. We froze some pumpkin puree. That's normal for us. But then we also freeze dried some pumpkin puree as well. And we made that into a powder. So I really wanted to make sure that we utilized that, used it, and rotated through it in our pantry. And the best way to do that for us as a family is to make things that are more convenient and easy to eat. So that's where the idea for a pumpkin pancake bulk mix came about. When it's as simple as adding water and oil, then it gets used up really quickly. What you don't see here is before I made this big batch, I did a lot of testing to come up with a smaller version, just one batch of pumpkin pancakes, and then I scaled that times 10 to make the bulk mix.
The plan for today is to make some pumpkin pancakes using this mix that I came up with myself. The trick is to figure out how much liquid I need to get a good pancake. I already tested this once yesterday and it failed. I added too much liquid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the oil or butter and then add water. Wait 15 minutes because this needs to rehydrate because it has so many dried ingredients in it, and then make the pancake. So hopefully this time we can get the ratio right. I'm going to start with less water and just slowly add more until we get to the right amount.
So I had kind of figured out roughly how much water that I should be adding based on what liquid was taken away when I added in the freeze-dried eggs and the freeze-dried pumpkin powder. And even on this second batch that I'm showing here, the batter was still too runny. And I couldn't figure out why there was this discrepancy with the amount of liquid that I calculated and the amount that I was adding to the recipe. So I went back and I checked my recipe notes and realized I had made a major error with my math. I multiplied everything by 10 with the exception of the flour, and I only multiplied that by 5. So I got that all fixed. I added more flour, made this whole big bulk mix again, tested it out, and added what I thought would be the right amount of water. And that ended up being correct. So everything worked out in the end, but it took a lot of trial and error. And by the end of this, my family and I are kind of sick of pumpkin pancakes right now. But we have some in the pantry for in the future when we're not so sick of testing them anymore. Up next is a very important pantry staple for us, and that is granola. And the reason that it's so important is this is what my kids will kind of use as cereal in the morning if they're in a hurry. A tradition that we kept from Cam's side of the family is they only had the ultra-processed sugary cereals like Lucky Charms on Christmas. And that was it for the year. And we have implemented that into our own family. We get that kind of cereal for Christmas Day and they eat it throughout the rest of the week, and then we're done for the year. So I always try and make sure that we have some granola in the pantry because For the rest of the year, this is acting as our quick, easy, convenient breakfast that requires no preparation at all, and the kids can just add milk to or add it to yogurt with some fruit, and then it's ready to eat. When I'm making something like this, or like the baking mixes that will last for a while in the pantry, I love to make a huge bulk batch just so I only have to make it like once a month rather than once a week. One of the things I really like about granola is it's super adaptable. So as long as I have oats, everything else can be substituted in some form or fashion. This is especially useful during the pantry challenge when sometimes we will run out of things that we normally have and we're not going to go buy more until the challenge is over. So we can just substitute something else for that ingredient. Like, say for example, I ran out of almonds. I could just substitute in some of the black walnuts that we harvested last year. I pressed down the granola on the baking sheet really tight together because we like ours to be like a little bit chunky when it's finished, and the way to achieve that is by pressing it into a sheet, and then we let it cool completely and we get the granola clusters rather than just the individual pieces. As long as the granola is nice and dry and you use oil instead of something like butter, it has a pretty long shelf life. I know it lasts at least 3 months. I am not sure how much longer it lasts than that because we legitimately have never had any extra past 3 months. We eat it too fast, basically. I made all of these pantry staples over the course of several weeks, and as of right now, I am just noticing a pattern here that so far these have all been breakfast foods, and this is a breakfast food. We are making instant oatmeal packets, although I don't make them into packets anymore. I just put them into mason jars, and then we measure out the amount of oatmeal and the amount of water that we need, and we don't waste plastic baggies or have to use those reusable plastic baggies and then wash them out and all that stuff. It's just a lot simpler to keep the end product inside the mason jars. So this time around I am making 2 different kinds of instant oatmeal. One is apple cinnamon and the other is going to be peaches and cream. We love to use our freeze-dried fruits for this. Right here, I am crushing up freeze-dried apples to make a powder, and then I put it into the instant oatmeal mix, and it makes for a stronger apple flavor. And the same with the peaches. If I crush those up a little bit and add it to the oatmeal mix, then it makes a stronger peach flavor. I also add just the chunks, but I cut them up a little bit so they're not so huge. And then you get a good textural difference, but also a good flavor boost with the powdered fruit as well. These are really easy to mix up and make, and they also taste a lot better than the name brand that you commonly find at the grocery store. And you can adapt the sugar to your taste, which is what I love about making this from scratch. So just like the granola, we store these in the half-gallon size mason jars. I label them, and I also put the cooking instructions on there, so it's just really quick and easy to make.
It is quite obvious at this point, I am nearing the very end of my pregnancy with our 6th baby. And being pregnant, one of the things that I try and focus on, even more than usual, is nutrition and trying to eat healthy because I have both me and the baby to think about. So that also transfers to other things that I do every day. And another place I have switched over to a natural option is our mattress, and I am so glad that we switched over to this so that I don't have to worry about it during pregnancy. We have a Birch Living mattress, and they are the sponsor for today's video. As I already mentioned, Birch mattresses are all natural. They have organic cotton, organic wool, and 100% natural latex. You can also be sure of their mattresses' safety because they are GOTS and Green Guard Gold certified, meaning they are free of any polyurethane-based foams and harsh, unnecessary chemicals and pollutants. Cam and I have a Birch Luxe mattress, which is an upgrade from their original mattress, and all of our kids have the original mattresses. We have had our mattress for about 2 years now. I think it's over 2 years now, and we're still loving it. We love not only the fact that it's natural, but it is also comfortable as well, which is important. With the purchase of a Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 25-year warranty. If you're looking for a new mattress, especially a natural one, I highly recommend checking out Birch Living. They are currently running their end of the year sale right now, so it's a perfect time to upgrade. And it is 25% off a Birch mattress plus 2 free EcoRest pillows. Visit birchliving.com/seasonal homestead to find out more about this limited time offer.
Last year when I was doing my stocking up video, I had purchased peanut butter. And I had a couple people say, why aren't you making your own peanut butter? And I was thinking about that and decided, well, maybe I will. So I compared the prices on Azure Standard, where I get my peanuts from, and I figured out that I would save about $4 a jar, which is crazy. That's a lot. So I decided, yeah, this is definitely going to be worth it for me to make. It's not going to take that much time, and I'm going to save a lot of money. So I ended up making my own ever since then. To make this, I just add the dry roasted peanuts and then a little bit of salt, and that is it. No recipe needed. I just make it to taste. We like our peanut butter extra creamy, so I leave it in the food processor for a long time until it is very smooth. Even though these jars of peanut butter are shelf stable, I do store them in the cold room because it makes it so the oil doesn't separate as easily, and then I don't have to stir them beforehand.
Cam got me a new immersion blender for Christmas, and so we're trying it out today. We're going to be making some mayonnaise. I usually make the mayonnaise in the food processor, but we're trying something a little bit different with the immersion blender. I've seen a different method where you put the egg and the oil all in one cup all at once, and then just blend it right there. With the food processor, we normally blend the egg and then slowly add in oil 1 drop at a time. So we're going to see if this works. I'm really impressed at how well this worked. It is nice and thick, and that was super easy. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in a different container and then put it in the fridge.
Okay, so the next thing I'm making, this is technically not a pantry staple or anything I'm going to store in my pantry. I'm going to be storing these in the freezer. And what I'm making is biscuits in advance. And I'm doing this because I just want to have as many things as possible pre-made before we have the baby. And it's just really good, the common theme here, to make things in bulk and then just save them for a later time. That is such a good way to make things from scratch without burning out, is making things in big batches and then just using them a little bit at a time. So I try and use whole grains wherever possible in my cooking and my baking. And in this case, I'm using spelt grains. And in the beginning, I ground those up and made them into a flour. And we use half spelt flour and half all-purpose flour. If we use 100% whole grains or all spelt, it tends to be a little bit dense. So we just try to do the best we can. So we have half and half here, and I'm doing this the lazy way. I mixed up some cold butter and cold lard inside of my mixer instead of chopping that in by hand or grating it up or any of that stuff. I'm at the end of my pregnancy here, so anything fast that still pretty much does the job is the better way to go for me right now. So even with this lazy method, as long as I can keep all of my ingredients cold, then I can still get good flaky biscuits at the end. So you may have seen I put the entire bowl of biscuit mix outside because it was really cold and snowy, and then I brought it back in, and when I roll these out, I roll it all out and then I fold it into thirds the long way and then the short way, and then turn it 90 degrees, roll it all out again, fold it into thirds again, the long way and then the short way, and then I put these back outside to chill while I made the second batch. I made a double batch here, so I have one batch that's able to chill while I'm working with the other dough, and then I have plenty to freeze. All of the folds help to make really good layers with the biscuits. So once that is all done and the dough has chilled a little bit, then it's time to cut out the biscuits. I learned that it's good to just cut straight up and down and not twist, otherwise you'll seal those layers together. And as I was doing this, I thought it would be nice to just make a few of these for dinner. So I ended up cooking some of them, and the rest I put in the freezers. Biscuits are one thing that freeze so well. You can hardly tell the difference between a biscuit that has been made fresh or one that is cooked straight from frozen. And for a little while, I was struggling with making biscuits from being completely frozen because they would always burn on the bottom. But I figured out the trick to that, and that is if you double stack 2 baking sheets together, then the bottoms will not burn. So the biscuits that I put in the freezer, I wanted to wait until those were frozen solid before I vacuum sealed them. So I came back a couple days later, put them in the vacuum seal bags, got them all sealed and labeled, and then put them back in the freezer.
Yesterday it started to snow and we were only supposed to get 3 to 5 inches, and we woke up this morning to 6 inches of snow, which is pretty cool. My kids are very excited. They have been in and out all day sledding and playing in the snow. So something that I have really wanted to try for a long time is making homemade marshmallows. So I'm going to attempt that today and see how it goes. Hopefully it is successful. One thing I didn't realize is it takes 4 hours for those to set according to this recipe that I'm following. After I make these marshmallows and they are cooling, I am going to make some hot chocolate mix as well for the pantry.
Marshmallows are pretty much sugar and gelatin, and they're not that healthy. But everything that I make, I'm like, maybe I can make this a little bit healthier by using honey instead of corn syrup. So I found a recipe online that had honey, and I decided to try that. I was cooking the honey. It said to boil it for 3 minutes. And by the time it was done, it kind of smelled like a little bit overcooked. So I don't know, that was probably user error on my part, but the taste in the end was quite strong of honey. If I do this again, I'm definitely going to use maple syrup instead of honey, because I felt like the honey was a little bit overpowering. Some of that could have been because I think I overcooked it a little bit, but it was a very strong flavor compared to the store marshmallows that we are used to. My kids love hot chocolate on a cold day, and that was the whole inspiration behind making a hot cocoa mix, was for them and to make my life a little bit easier, because usually when they make hot cocoa, they don't make it from a mix. They'll just print out a recipe and they'll make this whole big thing of hot cocoa. It takes like half a bag of chocolate chips and all of these other ingredients, and then they can't drink it all or they get sick of it. and it gets wasted, and I don't like it when things get wasted. So I thought, if I can make a mix where they're just taking out a little bit at a time, it's not making a huge mess, and then they don't waste it, then I am successful. So that was my goal in making this. I was winging the recipe completely. It actually turned out pretty good, but it still needs some tweaks before I share that recipe with you guys. Since I can't eat fresh dairy, I added some powdered coconut milk to this mix, and then we added water later. And on top, I just added the marshmallow, and we let that melt a little bit. And even though it didn't turn out quite like I hoped, it still was tasty and perfect for this snow day.